Always wear your safety goggles. The second thing I want to give to you, I'm taking from somebody else. I'm taking this from Beatles, which is an acronym for something I can't remember. But they're online. They're from Berkeley. UC Berkeley. However you spell Berkeley. And their acronym is I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of. And if I get stuck on a lesson, or if I don't really have anything that's prepared too thoroughly, I can always go back to any wormo, INIWIRMO, and that can save my butt. It also makes it a very rich and engaging learning environment for your students. As we go through all the little things I have, like all that stuff, as we go through there, I'm going to ask, what do you notice, what do you wonder, and what does it remind you of? So look up Beatles. They have a 14-page PDF all about this. I have not read the 14-page PDF, but really all you need to know is I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of. And finally, what we're going to use as our focus today is the 6 classical, simple machines. Once you learn about these, you start to see them everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Even the most complex machines can break down into simple machines. Simple ones that you can touch, you can manipulate, you can understand how they work. The 6 simple machines. I can't tell you how expansive learning about these machines has been for me personally. And it all started here with this book.
Fabulous book. This is the new way things work. It used to just be the way things work. But as things got more complicated, they had to add some new things like circuits and resistors and computer stuff. But in this book is a description of the 6 simple machines plus some more. And using that as your base, you can learn about all this complicated stuff, about all this stuff in my garage, about all this stuff in the world around you.
And you need never be afraid again. Now, even when we say the word machine, we can get a little worried if we don't feel mechanically inclined. Inclined, get it? Inclined plane. That's what this guy is right here. So we think machine, we think mechanical. We don't think of stuff like this. But in fact, what this does as a machine is it's going to take my input energy. I'm going to push forward this way. So it's going to travel like that. And it's going to take my input energy and it's going to put it outwards to the side because of the shape of this wedge.
So let's say I want to split these two things apart. I'm going to push forward that way. And because of this thing's shape, its force is going to go, instead of going forward, it's going to go forward. And it's also going to push it out that way. Here we go.
See that? Let's try it again. So forward, I beat that horse to death. So let's think of another example here. Here's a door. Door swings this way. Here's my giant door stop. I'm going to shove it underneath, but as the floor here isn't going to move, it's going to push the door up ever so slightly. And you won't see that really when you put it under your door because you're only going to shove it under so far. But it actually pushes the door up on its hinge. And while it's pushing up, the door is pushing down because of Newton, right? And the pressure is going down and it's forcing this down towards the floor. And that's going to keep your door from opening or closing. Okay, so what's our very first machine? And this was used thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago when people wanted to make it easier to dig under the ground and spread furrows apart so that they could drop the seeds in and grow some plants. So the wedge became the plow. Do you think the plow was important to the advancement of our species? I've got another wedge here, another inclined plane. I think you can see what the job of this one is. But these were originally made out of rock in Africa hundreds and hundreds of thousands and thousands of years ago. And I don't have much motion here between the thing and the axe and the camera. So I'm going to have to put some more force in here. But remember that downward, I'm putting downward force and it's going to spread that force out to the sides and hopefully split this thing in two. Oh, not enough. Let's see if I can bring it all up together. Well, that went pretty well. Let me do it over here. All the way down to the knot. Let's see if we can do one last one just for fun. I'd say that worked pretty well. Found it. Oh, here we go. And if we look really closely at this bolt, it has an inclined plane wrapped all the way around it. Can you believe that?
It's a wedge. Every single one of these little teeth here, we call it the thread. Each one is actually an uninterrupted inclined plane that wraps all the way around this bolt, the length of the entire bolt. And on the inside of the nut, we have a corresponding thread. Maybe I'll be able to show it. Yeah, on the inside there it is. It has the corresponding inclined plane.
Same thing with this screw here.
I'm going to put it in this hole and twist. And while it twists, that inclined plane is going to grab the wood, and its force is going to press against the wood and actually pull itself forward that way. The wood is going to pull itself that way against that inclined plane.
And then what you got to do is get yourself a tool. This does not look like a wheel and axle, but in fact it is. The wheel is going to turn that way when I'm tightening. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, right? So I'll go ahead and fit that in there. Add some rotational energy, some force. And as I'm twisting those threads, oops, guess what that inclined plane just did? It split that piece in two. I'm going to take it out and show you what I mean. Happy accident. Because even though this is round and this is cylindrical, let's look up at the very, very tip of it. Aha! It itself is an inclined plane, or a wedge. So when that wedge went down through the grain of this wood, what did it want to do? It wanted to split that apart. It's going this way, and the wedging action is pushing out. So if you don't drill a pilot hole first, you're probably going to end up driving that wedge through and splitting the wood. Whoops. But look at that. You actually get to see the thread that is cut on the inside of this piece of wood. So on this one here, which by the way, look in this book, there is a page. There it is. So while that's stuck down in there, this water can't go anywhere. It's under a lot of pressure from the rest of the pipe that's all the way there. Pull that thing out of the way, pull the gate out of the way, open this valve, and all of a sudden the water can come out. I got this for 99 cents. You might be able to find one, or find one for cheap. And this was, as I opened it up, I found out it's a twofer, because some little insect had gotten in there and made a, well, it laid its eggs, some kind of spider or something. And I found it on the inside. There it is. Corresponding part.
Anyway, you can look in here and you can see where, let me get a flashlight. You can actually see that gate that I was talking about down there. And the end of this, of our inclined plane screw, as it goes down, this part's going to fill that hole and prevent any water from getting in. And check it out, there are inclined planes all over the place. Here's one with a hose to connect to. Up here where you want the valve to connect to. I had to take that apart with a big wrench. And here where it's going to hook up to the pipe that comes out of the house or out of your fixture. And this works just like it shows you in that book.
What I would do is I would just show these to some youngins and I would say, give me your best hypothesis about how this works. And they'd probably draw a picture. I'd have them draw the outside first and then try to draw the schematic on the inside of how this screw comes down and blocks that valve. Here is another simple machine, the wheel. All right, but this by itself, not terribly useful. What you need is a wheel with an axle, and that axle will turn with the wheel. I got an example right here. Here's our first wheel. I'm going to put my energy in this way. Now, as we said in our definition of a machine, it's going to change the direction of the force that you're putting into it. So my force is going to make this shaft turn. There's the center right there. That center is the shaft that's on the inside, this shaft right here, which we'll call the axle for the wheel and axle. And as I turn it, it's going to turn this other wheel in the middle. This is more of a complex machine because you've got several machines working at the same time and in concert. So while I turn this one, there's a wheel with another shaft, another axle in the middle. And this one's turning off center. And therefore this twisting motion that I'm putting into it gets converted into an up and down motion on this wheel. And when this wheel turns, it pushes on yet another wheel. This doesn't have to be a wheel, it just happened to be that way because of the way the student built it. But what that's making this do is go up and down right here. So if I apply some pressure and press it down, what we've got here is a camshaft. You string a couple of those together, put some gas in, make some explosions, and you've got an engine.
Alright, we've got a bunch of little inclined planes right here. These are the teeth on this saw blade. Now, this is a special case. Each one is ground down so that the face of it makes that wedge that's going to do the splitting. And then the round part of the back carries the sawdust away and makes sure everything's nice and clean while it cuts through. It doesn't want to get clogged with sawdust while you're cutting through stuff with this saw blade. But I'm showing this machine to you because it's another compound one, but it takes a few different of the simple machines, puts them together to work for you. Let's open it up here. So we've got a wheel here, we've got a wheel down here, and that blade right here is actually riding around the outside of this wheel. So as I pull it down, you can see it's turning that wheel. There it is, riding the top of the wheel. So if we follow this all the way down, it's actually running on another wheel. There's two wheels. And when they spin, they look like a tape deck. Works the same way as a tape deck. In the back here, we've got a motor. The motor has a little wheel on it, and the wheel has a belt. And this belt is traveling to the back side of this wheel. So as the motor turns, this little black wheel, it's going to turn that belt. And that belt is traveling to the back of this wheel, turning this wheel, which itself becomes a giant pulley because it's turning the saw blade around the top of this wheel down here to the cutting surface. And while it spins, it's really fast. We can push some wood against it and get it cut.
So let's try to change what we've got going on here. I've got this lever where I'm pressing down on here. Here's the fulcrum where all the energy is transmitted. Pressing down really hard to get this to come up. But if I move it all the way over here, now it becomes very easy to lift that up. So instead of lifting heavy weights, let's use it to exert force in a different way. And I'm going to use these little snippers, pretty sharp, and cut some of this wire here. So let's do it without the fulcrum. I'm going to try to just do it just by squeezing the sharp end together. You see what I'm saying? The fulcrum is here. I've put the load and the effort all in the same place. It's another class of lever. I'll have to look it up. But not easy. I can't squeeze it. This is soft copper. It should be very easy to cut. But because I have to put in so much squeezing force, it ain't going to happen. So instead, let's take advantage of that fulcrum and put our effort all the way out here. So easy. This is another class of lever. I can never remember which class is which. There's first, second, and third class levers. Then it's just about how you're going to arrange the fulcrum and then the effort and the load. Here's my effort, here's my load, here's the fulcrum. We'll put it over here, real easy. If I put it out here, I don't have that much of a mechanical advantage. So this gives me more of a mechanical advantage right here. Makes it relatively easy to lift those 5 pounds. So I want to go back to the beginning. Everything you've seen me do here, just messing around with stuff. Since I was asking these questions, and if your students are writing it down, asking questions about stuff using tools is science. Start from the simple machines, and you'll begin to realize just in everyday objects, this lever here, this series of levers, this, believe it or not, wheel and axle, screws, inclined planes, just everything is related. Everything speaks this everything speaks this this fundamental, immutable language of simple machines. This here I found on the street, simple yo-yo. It too is a simple machine. All right, it's a wheel with an axle. You can't see it, but in the middle there's an axle. And when I hold it up in my hand, I'm going to shorten the strength of the string some. When I hold it up in my hand, before dropping it, it's got this potential energy because I'm holding it up above the ground. And when I let it go and drop it to the floor, you're going to see energy in action. You're going to see kinetic energy. And it's going to bounce back up because it's got this centrifugal momentum and it's going to want to keep spinning. All right, there is science and physics and a simple machine going on inside of this thing. There's also history. Someone said that they found evidence of a kid in a picture from ancient Greece 2,500 years ago using a yo-yo. So what I really want to get at from all this rambling and tinkering that I've been doing is how fundamental the forces are that we use, how fundamental the machines are that make up our everyday objects. And that if you can get in touch with some of those things, the world doesn't have to seem as scary or as befuddling as it is. As it seems to a lot of people. Get yourself a copy of this book. Look online for other things by David Macaulay. And you'll be well on your way to being a STEAM expert. Thanks for hanging out.